John Pilger documentary from the 80s. John Pilger's freaking amazing. All right, let's watch this Prager U video. This is interesting to me. The difference between a leftist and a liberal, I guess, from Dennis Prager himself. Thank you to Jacob for sending us this one. Should be interesting.
What's the difference between a liberal and a leftist? This question stumps most people because they think liberal and left are essentially the same. But they're not. In fact, liberalism and leftism have almost nothing in common. But the left has appropriated the word liberal so effectively, almost everyone, liberals, leftists, and conservatives, thinks they are synonymous. But they're not. Let me offer you 6 examples. 1. Race. This is probably the most obvious difference between liberal and left. The liberal position on race has always been A, the color of a person's skin is insignificant, and B, those who believe race is significant are racists. Meanwhile, the left believes the very opposite. To the left, it's the liberal attitude toward race. It's unimportant. That is racist. That's why the University of California officially lists the statement, there is only one race, the human race, as racist. And liberals have always been passionately committed to racial integration, while the left is increasingly committed to racial segregation, such as all black dormitories and separate black graduations at universities. 2. Capitalism. Liberals have always been pro.
It's almost like listening to the interview that we did a while back with Vivek Chibber, where he's talking about post-colonial theory and the way that it's made to sound radical, but it sees things only through the lens of class. Only through the lens of race, without organizing people and unifying people through class, through the economic class, which connects us all, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexuality, and all these things. It's almost like Vivek Chibber explaining that, just way dumber and way more simplified, and without drawing any of the conclusions that Vivek draws in order to help the left and actually help move society forward to something better. Thank you so much for the super sticker, David. Appreciate your constant support. Just so people know, if you have a question that you want me to answer, send me a super chat and I'll stop what I'm doing as soon as possible and answer your super chat. But thank you so much to David for the support with the $5 super sticker there. Love you, David.
Pro-capitalism because liberals are committed to free enterprise and because they know capitalism is the only way to lift great numbers of people out of poverty. It is true that liberals want government to play a bigger role in the economy than conservatives do. But liberals never opposed capitalism, and they were never for socialism. Opposition to capitalism and advocacy of socialism are left-wing values. 3. Nationalism.
Like, honestly, I don't hate this video so far. Like, it's funny because it's basically Dennis Prager arguing in favor of liberalism, and usually he's talking about how liberals are the root of all evil. But he's not totally wrong. Like, to be a socialist, a quote-unquote leftist, you have to be for universal struggle. You have to think that economic class is the thread that ties us all together. Like I said, regardless of race, sexuality, ethnicity, all these things. And obviously, socialists support right to self-determination first, the right of any peoples to, determine their own government, have control over their own land, have sovereignty. But yeah, we socialists focus more on class versus liberals focus more on identity politics.
Liberals believe in the nation state, whether that nation is the United States, Brazil, or France. But because the left divides the world by class rather than by national identity, the left has always opposed nationalism. So, while liberals have always wanted to protect American sovereignty and
it's not entirely true. Not entirely true, because like I said, the left supports national self-determination first. So there have been anti-imperialist, sort of socialistic nationalists like Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran, who most leftists would support. And the Socialist Party in Iran and the Communist Party, the Tudeh Party, helped bring to power. They helped bring Mossadegh to power by organizing behind him, realizing this is our best chance for sovereignty and economic redistribution, even though he's not a socialist. But ultimately the left doesn't support straight up nationalism as an end goal, right? The end goal isn't to establish the nation, it's to engage in the class struggle, to have a nation that's dominated by the working class. So I don't fully agree with what he said there, but it's still kind of true.
Borders, the left is for open borders. When the writers of Superman were liberals, Superman was a proud American whose very motto was truth, justice, and the American way. But that all changed a few years ago when left-wing writers took over the comic strip and had Superman renounce his American citizenship to be a citizen of the world. The left has contempt for nationalism, seeing it as the road to fascism. Better that we should all be citizens of the world.
Honestly, this is more cosmopolitanism. This is more liberalism. Cosmopolitanism is defined as like the bringing together of many different cultures from many different nations, sort of having one global borderless culture. Versus, like I said, socialists believe in national self-determination. So the right of a nation of people to determine what their own country does. Which is based in a sort of sense of patriotism and a sense of love that every working class in any country has for their own country. So I think Dennis Prager needs to read Marxism and the National Question by Stalin. He's just slightly confused here. Although, like I said, the left doesn't support just national self-determination as an end goal.
In a world without borders. 4. View of America. Liberals have always venerated America. Watch American films from the 1930s through the 1950s, and you'll be watching overtly patriotic, America-celebrating films, virtually all produced, directed, and acted by liberals. Liberals were quite aware of America's imperfections, but they agreed with Abraham Lincoln that America is the last best hope of Earth. The left, however, believes the left is the last best hope of Earth and regards America as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, violent, and imperialistic. 5. Free speech. No.
Again, he's mostly talking about like post-colonial theorists, less so than the actual left or the actual organized working class or socialists who have been successful around the world. Generally, they support struggle within the nation, right? They don't support the abolition of the nation. They support struggle within the nation to sublate it. Sublate it mean keeping its good aspects while getting rid of its bad aspects, its exploitation, imperialism, and things like that, which is, I know there's disagreement about that among the left, but I've argued in favor of actually using Abraham Lincoln himself and Abraham Lincoln's quotes about labor being prior to capital in order to organize Americans to struggle within their own country. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion always when the conservatives are talking about the socialist left in the United States, because we've had so much controlled opposition, because we've had so many things like the Frankfurt School that kind of skew what radical socialism or radical leftism actually is and turn it more into radical liberalism. And then a lot of theorists like Jordan Peterson is the worst at this. They'll point to the radical liberalism of like the Frankfurt School, and they'll be like, these Marxists, these postmodern neo-Marxists, when really those people are just rad libs.
No one has been more committed than American liberals to the famous statement, I wholly disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. But the left is leading the first widespread suppression of free speech in modern American history, from the universities to the tech companies that govern the internet to almost every other institution.
How is that the left? How is that the left? Who owns these institutions, Dennis? It's the capitalists. It's the people with capital. It's the people with wealth and a lot of money, which you can use to buy literally anything in this country, including influence and power. Because everything's been commodified in this country and money is the universal equivalent within capitalism. Like the media, the academic institutions. The academic institutions read Jane Mayer's Dark Money. The academic institutions have had tons of money poured into them by corporations, by capitalists. And you just said the left, the socialists, are against capitalism. So how is this being led by the left? Like, what is the left? You're not even consistent with your definitions of what these groups are, these ideologies are. How are leftists and socialists in power over these things? Is Joe Biden a leftist to you? Is he an anti-capitalist to you, Dennis?
In place of work. Of course, the left claims to only oppose hate speech. But putting aside the fact that the left deems hate speech anything it differs with, protecting what you or I might consider hate speech is the entire point of free speech. 6. Western civilization. Liberals have always championed.
Damn you leftist tech corporations. We need to get some billionaires in charge of those companies. They've been run by the working class for far too long. We got to get some upper class shareholders in charge of those things. Privatize American tech. Literally, who controls big tech, Dennis? Why do you think they call it big tech? It's because big corporations own it, not the working class. Elon Musk is being considered the savior of free speech right now. He's just a billionaire oligarch who bought Twitter from other billionaire oligarchs. None of these corporations are controlled by the working class in any way, shape, or form. TikTok is literally being controlled by former State Department and former NATO operatives. Literally former NATO operatives, including people who worked at NATO's Department of Online Communications or whatever. They got transferred into high up positions at TikTok and the company Oracle.
And sought to protect Western civilization. Liberals celebrate the West's unique moral, philosophical, artistic, musical, and literary achievements, and have taught them at virtually every university. The most revered liberal in American political history, President Franklin Roosevelt, often cited the need to protect Western civilization and even Christian civilization. Yet when President Donald Trump spoke of the need to protect Western civilization in a speech in Warsaw, the left-wing media, also known as the mainstream media, denounced him. They argue that Western civilization is no better than any other, and that Western civilization.
How is the mainstream media the leftist media? How is the mainstream media anti-capitalist? The mainstream media that's literally owned by capitalists? People like Rupert Murdoch and people like you, Dennis? The mainstream media that does commercial breaks every 10 minutes or so because they're capitalist institutions who need to make money, who sell airtime to advertisers like Pfizer, who then influence the kind of content they create. The same mainstream media who blackballs anybody who speaks out against war or speaks out against capitalism, even people like Sam Cedar, who are literally just rad libs. How can you say this is the mainstream media and big tech are leftists and socialists? Like, how does anybody fall for this stuff? I don't get it. I saw somebody with a Prager U bumper sticker the other day. I'm like, you really sit down in front of your computer, you watch these videos, and you walk away from them like, yeah, that made sense. That was a coherent argument. Definitely, the media and tech corporations that are literally owned by capitalists and used to make money for capitalists, those are anti-capitalist socialist organizations run by the working class. Like, even if you're a conservative, you have to watch that and realize it doesn't make any damn sense.
Civilization is just a euphemism for white supremacy. So then, if liberalism and leftism are so different, why don't liberals oppose the left? In a nutshell, because they have been taught all their lives to fear the right. But as one of the best-known liberals in America, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz said, as a liberal, as an American, and as a Jew, I far more fear the left than the right. Dear liberals, conservatives are not your enemy. The left is. I'm Dennis Prager. To help keep these videos.
Okay, well, you didn't really explain what the left actually is, but it is interesting to see Dennis Prager like, hey, conservatives, let's team up with these liberals. They still support war. You know, they still support maintaining Western hegemony and this hegemonic U.S. or Western finance capitalist oligarchy dominated by shareholders on Wall Street in London. You know, the liberals still support that. Let's team up with them. which is so revealing because neoliberals and neoconservatives, although conservatives and liberals, like working class or professional managerial class, normal working liberals and conservatives probably disagree with each other a lot. But neoliberals and neoconservatives agree on everything that's important. Not everything, but 95% of important issues, right? They constantly debate and are polarized over social issues, which is how they pretend like they're different. But when it comes to the endless wars, when it comes to bailouts for Wall Street, when it comes to corporate subsidies, when it comes to being bought and paid for by the capitalist ruling class, by the financial oligarchy, they agree with each other completely. And they keep the working class fighting over whatever social issue is hot button is in the news this week, but on all the important issues they agree, and they're running out the back door with all the money year after year after year. So it makes sense that Dennis Prager would just straight up say it. Yeah, hey, conservatives, let's start siding with the neoliberals.